Putin ordered operation in eastern Ukraine. Russian President Putin approved the resolution recognizing the independence of Donetsk and Luhansk in eastern Ukraine. The USA and the EU have decided to impose sanctions on Russia. Reuters announced that the Russian leader gave orders for peacekeeping operations in Donetsk and Luhansk. There is a historical process going on in the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree recognizing the so-called rule of pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. Clashes between Russian-backed separatists and Ukrainian soldiers in Donbas have been going on since 2014, despite the ceasefire agreement. Until now, Russia had not officially recognized Donetsk and Luhansk, which declared themselves independent states. Against this step of Russia, harsh reactions and sanction decisions came from NATO, UN, USA and EU. Turkey also declared that Russia's decision was unacceptable. Russia recognizes the separations. Despite the Kiev administration in eastern Ukraine in 2014, pro-Russian separatists formed two so-called governments on the territory of Ukraine, the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree recognizing the so-called rule of pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. Celebration. In Donbas, pro-Russian supporters took to the streets to celebrate with Russian flags and fireworks. USA bans trade activities with two regions in Ukraine that Russia recognizes independence. European Union strongly condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin's signing of the decree on the recognition of the so-called administration of pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine, threatening sanctions. NATO, an excuse for invasion. NATO condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin's decision to officially recognize the so-called administrations of pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. UN Secretary-General Guterres said Russia's recognition decision is against Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, against the UN Charter. We fully support Ukraine's territorial integrity within the framework of its internationally recognized borders. France, Macron stated that Russian President Vladimir Putin violated his international commitments by officially recognizing the so-called administrations of pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine, and demanded that Europe take a decision on sanctions against this country. Germany called on Russia to reverse its decision on Donetsk and Lugansk. Italy, Foreign Minister Luigi Di Maio stated that Russia's decision to recognize separatist governments in Ukraine should be condemned as it violates the Minsk agreements, and that it is a serious obstacle to the search for a diplomatic solution. Britain, Russia's decision to recognize separatist governments in Ukraine is a violation of international law. Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, within the framework of recent developments, it is strongly recommended that our citizens leave the eastern regions of Ukraine. Market. As the first reaction to the escalation of tension, Brent oil rose 3% to above $94. With the escalation of geopolitical risks, spot gold also rose to the level of $1908. Putin ordered Operation Peacekeeping Force order. Reuters agency announced that a few hours after this decision, the Russian leader gave orders for peacekeeping operations in Donetsk and Luhansk. Reaction from Turkey to Russia. We find Russia's decision to recognize the Donetsk and Luhansk republics unacceptable and we reject it, the Foreign Ministry said in a statement. In a written statement made by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the decision of the Russian Federation to recognize the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk republics is in violation of the Minsk agreements, as well as a clear violation of Ukraine's political unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity. We find this decision of Russia unacceptable and reject it. On this occasion, we emphasize our commitment to the protection of the political unity and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and call on all interested parties to comply with common sense and international law. Zelensky to meet Erdogan. Anadolu agency reported that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is planning a meeting with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Russia's recognition of the so-called Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. In a statement on Twitter, Zelensky stated that he discussed the current situation with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson after the National Security and Defense Council meeting. U.S. commercial activities suspended. U.S. President Joe Biden has issued a decree banning all commercial and financial relations of U.S. individuals and institutions with the so-called Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, in which he declared that Russia recognizes its independence. Meanwhile, the United States temporarily withdrew its diplomatic personnel from Ukraine to Poland. Coming to the public from social media. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the public on social media. Russia bears all responsibility for the consequences of the decisions taken. Emergency meeting from UN Security Council. The UN Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the Ukraine crisis. The UN, warning that the point reached between Ukraine and Russia is extremely dangerous, called for the development of a major conflict risk to be prevented at all costs.